Hi, nice to have you. In this video, we're going to be discussing the anxious tendency to hold back in relationship, which means not being true to yourself for fear of how the other person may react. So we're holding back, but at the same time, the internal experience that we're often having is desperately wanting to be seen, wanting to be loved, feeling very urgent and getting someone's time or attention, and yeah, kind of this desperate energy, which can be felt by the other person, even when our external presentation could be, it's okay, I'm fine. So, we're going to talk about that and how to feel more safe and even fearless in just being who you are and expressing what you need from the beginning of a relationship. So, I want to give an example. Say you're seeing someone who is a little bit hot and cold, a little bit in and out, but you're holding out hoping that it will get more serious over time. And on this specific weekend, he has now canceled this kind of tentative Friday plan that you had because he's going to a festival out of town with his guy friends. You respond saying something like, "It's all good, hope you have fun," dance emoji, sparkle emoji. Meanwhile, you are in an anxious spiral that ruins your Friday and Saturday night. So let's zoom in on these moments a little further, starting with the moment that you get that text that he's canceled or he's going out with other people or whatever. Your stomach probably drops, your mind starts telling you he's with other girls or he doesn't see you, whatever the story is, and internally you're feeling super devastated. But instead of saying anything, you decide it would be better to just play it cool in hopes that he maybe at least thinks about you while he's gone or will maybe hang out with you on Sunday or just doesn't feel like you're being pushy. And then maybe you go post a hot Instagram story to see if he views it later or likes it. So let's go to that moment where your mind tells you it would be not good or not okay to show him that this is upsetting. It might sound like, I cannot freak out on him even though I feel like crying. I'm obviously not going to freak out because that's dramatic and that's needy. But the experience that you're having is pretty intense. But your mind is kind of right. It would be a lot to freak out on someone for that, but there's another option that your brain, which is now in survival anxiety mode, does not have the capacity to consider. So your mind is telling you don't show emotion because the emotion as it is feels so intense that you feel it might come across as needy or crashing out or having a breakdown, which is going to scare him. So the alternative feels like what you have to do is play it cool over text and then probably crying in the shower. Why doesn't this work? Because it will happen again. This guy has no idea how hard the weekend was for you when he texts you 2 days later or 3 days later. No idea. But your fear of him leaving is telling you not to express your need here. If you could trust that your communication of this experience that you had was going to be graceful and kind and you weren't going to be labeled as crazy, but instead you actually got your emotions validated and maybe even got your way, would it be worth it to try a different way? What does that option look like? So let's go through it again. Let's say he texts you this. "Sorry to cancel, we got tickets to blah blah blah, can we rain check?" Option one, you say, "Oh my god, so fun, no worries." Meanwhile, you're actually really upset and hurt. Option number two, you say something like, "Wow, that's great. Too bad though, I was really looking forward to spending more time with you, but I trust that you'll be rescheduling at your earliest convenience." Wink. So that second option, it's a little bold, it's a little flirty, but it gives him a chance to support you and it communicates in a loving way the truth that you are disappointed. So then maybe he responds, "Oh no, I was looking forward to it too. I'll make it up to you. We can set a date on Monday." Ugh, imagine how different that would feel to your system to be able to have that conversation and how different the whole weekend could feel. But again, what's happening is your fear of rejection is driving you to not express how you actually feel because you don't want the rejection to hit even harder than it already feels like it is because he rescheduled in the first place. What I want to highlight is by communicating in this way, "Too bad, I was really looking forward to seeing you." That's the difference between taking your trigger out on someone, which could be the full on like freak out actual crazy girl thing, or just letting him in on the truth of your experience, which actually, side polarity lesson, gives him the chance to step up into creating some structure and rescheduling. And if he doesn't do that, then maybe that's a nice little clue that maybe you won't get all of what you want in this dynamic anyway. So, for sure, where we get stuck is that we have a fear that our disappointment or our desires will translate into something that is too overwhelming for the other person and it will push them away. So there's something in our mind saying, this is too much. I am too much. You might have it for different reasons. Maybe you generally feel like you're not allowed to have what you want. Maybe you feel like you need to be a certain way to get what you want. Maybe because the experience of your body is so intense, it feels like too much to share with someone else. And the reason why it feels so intense to the body, even though the mind is saying, it's just one weekend, it's just a festival, it's not a big deal, it's okay, the body is freaking out in fear and panic and feeling maybe sick or like completely shutting down or wanting to stay on the couch all weekend, depending how it shows up for you, is because that trigger within your body is a very young part of your psyche. You can see it as like a neural pathway, a pattern, a defense system. The part that's had an initial wound or initial trauma is and was younger than you are now. So the intelligence and awareness of this part of your psyche and your nervous system is also very young. So what you're dealing with is a reaction that maybe feels irrational or childish. It's because it is. It's coming from a childlike part of us that we haven't healed. And that's why it's so important to go find these places within yourself and in your subconscious and offer healing to these wounds. So coming back to this present day example, how can you work through an experience like this? The work here is that the first time you get this feeling with someone, the disappointment, the gut wrenching, the, oh my God, I'm not being chosen, or whatever it is, that's the hint, okay? And you're like, ooh, ouch, that doesn't feel good. But I just met this person, so it's okay. I'm just gonna watch what happens here. That little ouch, or that thing that like kind of raises alarms of like, what's going on here? That's your body talking to you. That's your body showing you what the boundary is. That little sadness in your body, that little disappointment, that is the hint for you to actually listen to instead of override and say, oh, well, I really like him, so I'll just take it. And then it happens again, and you go, oh, but I really like him, so I'll just not ask for this thing or do this thing or not do this thing. And when you're feeling disappointed by the way that someone showed up or didn't show up or communicated, that is the perfect time to start to communicate your boundaries and how you expect to be respected or treated, because otherwise it's going to keep happening. And if we let it happen over and over, that's when we get really hurt. And sometimes that's when the crazy girl response does come out, where to the person you're dating, it might seem completely uncalled for because they didn't know you were getting more and more mad, when the truth is that the first 20 times you didn't say anything. You just kept it in your body thinking, when is he gonna realize? When is he gonna read my mind? When is he gonna commit more? Why isn't he communicating the way I do? Why doesn't he see me the way I see him? And I was in a session with a client the other night and I got a really clear visual. It was like she had her own raft, okay? It's made up of 10 logs. He has a raft made up of 10 logs. Because she was allowing him to sort of get away with all of these things, not being consistent with dates, not initiating the dates, not really bringing her into his world, but still like hanging out with her consistently. It's like she was sacrificing all these logs. Like, okay, I'll let go of that need for you. I'll let go of that part of my safety and foundation for you. I'll let go of that. I'll let go of this need of feeling committed to. And now she's basically balancing on one log. So when the water shakes just a little bit, it feels completely out of control because she doesn't have the safety and foundation anymore, because she sacrificed it for this man who she's now very emotionally invested in. And I've totally been there, so I could really feel what she's going through, and it feels very out of control because the more we fall in love with these people that we're seeing, the harder it is to walk away. So you're left here balancing on this one log, desperately wanting the other person to take you onto their raft. And when it's not happening, we find ourselves getting exhausted from having to balance and roll on this log and get so burnt out from feeling like we're giving and allowing and showing up and tolerating and being lovable and being all of these things, and we're not getting any of it in return. And something I have to point to here is that it's not anyone else's responsibility to guess or assume what you need or want. And I know that that's really hard to understand for anxious attachers because we tend to think we know what other people need or want, or we're just so overcompensating that the other people around us tend to feel generally satisfied because we do have a high emotional attunement to what they need. And also, you might be a generally fawning person who is just going to make experiences better for the other people around you without them even realizing, without them even asking, even if it comes from sacrificing your own needs. So, yes, it makes sense that most people relate to you in a positive way. They want to be around you. On the other side, if we're dating someone who doesn't have that same hypervigilance and coping mechanism of people pleasing like we do, they're not going to see us, but it's also not their job. It's not their job to be able to see people the way that we can, because our ability to deeply feel and see other people and know what they need is a trained response that we got good at, right? It's part of our survival response. It's part of how we learned we needed to be in order to get love. And in a way, it can be such a gift to be able to see people and love people in that way. But we have to remember that it's not someone else's responsibility to guess what you need, because it's also part of our trauma response when it's out of balance. So it's your responsibility to keep that level of showing up within your own capacity. And if it's leading to resentment of someone else or annoyance, then it's no longer in your capacity, and that's another boundary to work with. All right, so we've covered the piece on holding back from sharing your needs and desires and emotions. But the thing about needs and desires is that if we're not getting them met consciously, we will try and get them met covertly or unconsciously. So it might not even be in your awareness, but we start to kind of manipulate situations and other people to give us what we want. And that's where this grasping energy or the desperate energy of anxious attachment starts to play out, because you are craving to feel chosen and feel safe and secure. And those things are really important. But if you don't believe you can just have them as your authentic self, then you will likely compromise and feel resentful. So put up with less than and then feel bitter. Or you will try and control the situation by doing a lot of initiating in dating, for example, initiating the texting, suggesting the dates for fear that if you don't, then they won't, and then you will never see them. And it kind of has this grasping, pulling, forcing energy. This can come from the energy of, I am a whole and complete person with my own whole and complete raft, and I would like to see you. Or it can come from the energy of, I'm scared if you don't talk to me, you're going to forget about me, and you might forget about me. So let's hang out, please. The second is control. It's the opposite of receptivity. It's the opposite of openness, which is actually the feminine energy, right? Feminine energy involves the ability to be open and soften, to allow oneself to receive, to be nourished by the world around us, to be nourished by the energy around us and the people around us. But when we don't feel safe to be open and to be soft, and we don't trust that, then we go into control and force and rigidity. And dating can be a very fluid experience in terms of masculine and feminine poles and polarity, but there are some behaviors and rules that are going to likely, probably, consistently turn away a man. If your goal is desiring a man who's in his leadership and in his masculine, in his commitment energy, when you initiate a really high amount of control, you're not giving him a chance to show you who they are and how they show up. And when we do that, it's also a sign of not trusting. We're not trusting that we can get what we want if we don't force it. So when we release that grip of control, then there's this space that opens up. And that space can be filled with spontaneity and playfulness or creativity, also in our relationships. So being in receptivity or open to receiving and open to being taken care of requires a letting go of the need to control outcomes and the need for it to look a specific way, and surrendering to the flow of what's actually going on. And when you let yourself sit back and be in surrender, then it also gives you an opportunity to really watch what's actually happening. And when you're watching what's actually happening, then you are connected to the reality of the dynamic of the person with the person you're dating. And that's going to show you what the connection is really like, what their effort is really like, what their communication style is really like. And if what you're looking for is a healthy, mature love, then we need to have that chance to take the back seat and see what's happening and see how it actually feels for you instead of trying to control and force a situation to move deeper or move forward. And moving into more receptivity and openness is going to be part of your journey, because healing from anxious attachment or past traumas requires cultivating receptivity. It's particularly healing and something I'm also continuing to work on, but by learning to soften that protective armor around your heart, allowing yourself to be seen for who you are instead of who you think you need to be for the other person, and then receive love for who you are, which will naturally happen when you allow yourself to be this open in the world. That's when we get to heal these old wounds and develop more self-worth and also a greater sense of belonging. In the embodiment practices and the deeper teachings that I do around this part of the work, masculine, feminine, and specifically being open in the feminine, a practice you can start with is being open in the face of another person, but not necessarily to the other person. It's like you feel yourself being open while being present with someone else, and you do this by really experiencing all the sensory perception and pleasure of being with them in that moment. So instead of it being about them or about you or what do I say or how do I look, how can you be open to the moment that you're in together? This heightened senses deepens our connection with ourselves, and it allows the other person to also feel a sense of trust and feel you and feel the presence, and it deepens the presence of the relationship way more than you trying to control and manipulate and do the right thing. On another level, your practice is to start phrasing for yourself how to name some of these desires that you have. So, like the example at the beginning, when you're in one of these situations, can you slow down and think, how can I communicate this in a loving, graceful way that actually still leaves this person feeling good and understanding that I appreciate our time together, that I'm looking forward to our time together? How can I communicate the truth of my experience while still offering grace and appreciation? I was talking to another one of my clients this week, and she started seeing a new guy a few months ago, and she was telling me how she couldn't even have the conversation about wanting a relationship with the guy that she dated before. And with this guy, she was able to speak out immediately what she wanted. And then a week later, he was talking with her about their future daughter and like the clothes they were going to dress her in. So, can you see by her opening her truth, it gave him an opportunity to meet her there? That might not always happen, but when you're telling your truth and the other person sees you and meets you, then at least you know if you're going in the same direction or not. If you tell your truth and you're not met, it's still a gift, because now you get to see where the other person is actually at and what their capacity is, and then you make a decision about that reality. And just to help this land, one other thing that you can sort of reflect on is, what is that mask that you wear when you start dating people? Where do you specifically hold back? And then I want you to think, how long have you been doing that? How many past relationships or situations or people you dated got that version of you that was withheld, that was rigid or performing? Just reflect on that for a little bit. How long in a past relationship did it take you to actually hit the point of feeling completely and totally yourself? Was it 6 months? Was it 1 year? Have you ever gotten to that point with someone? So reflect on that. Take some breaths into the topics that I brought into this episode. Let land whatever's gonna land. work with whatever sticks in your mind now, knowing that you can come back to the video and you can come back and deepen work with these concepts. I would love to hear from you in the comments below, and if you're ready to go deeper and be in interaction in a live group and be supported and be coached and be held, then you can join my Becoming Secure Women's membership. There's a link for that in the video description. I hope to meet you in there. Talk to you soon.